Can you still hear the smooth crackle of a vinyl record spinning, or feel the textured corduroy beneath your fingertips as sunlight streams through avocado green curtains? The 1970s were a tapestry of unforgettable moments, stitched with the vibrant threads of disco lights, shag carpets, and the distant jingle of an ice cream truck echoing down suburban streets. This era pulsed with newfound freedoms, a time when families piled into wood-panelled station wagons for long road trips, and Saturday nights meant gathering beneath the glow of a disco ball or huddling around a glowing television set. Home decor was bold, music was electric, and the world seemed to shift between the nostalgia of the past and the promises of tomorrow. Do you remember the pride of your first mood ring, or the excitement of seeing Pong come to life on a simple black and white TV screen? So much of what made the 70s magical can't be touched, but still lingers in our hearts. Let's peel back the decades and rediscover what made the 1970s truly unforgettable. You might just find more magic than you ever remembered. If you close your eyes and listen closely, you might almost hear the distant hum of a rotary telephone or the soft click of a Polaroid camera, frozen in that very first moment of the new decade. The 1970s didn't simply appear, they arrived with a gentle but tangible shift, carrying with them the hopes and hesitations of millions of Americans emerging from a tumultuous era. The world we stepped into at the start of 1970 was one in transition, balancing the lingering glow of the optimism that colored the post-war years against the changing social and political winds swirling just outside the screen door. America in 1970 felt different. We had just watched a man walk on the moon, the television broadcast reaching into living rooms from Nebraska to New York, uniting families in awe. The echoes of the civil rights movement still resonated in city halls and on small-town main streets, while the Vietnam War colored daily headlines and kitchen table conversations alike. Cars had a certain heft and style, chrome bumpers gleamed in the sun, and there was nothing quite like the roar of a V8 engine on an open stretch of highway. Could you have guessed then that seat belts would become mandatory within the decade, forever changing the feeling of family car trips? Day-to-day life in 1970 had an air of earnestness and possibility, even as the nation wrestled with change. Inflation quietly loomed, shaping shopping trips and dinner table debates. At the grocery store, you might find a gallon of milk for about $1.32 and a loaf of bread for only a quarter, though believe it or not, those prices would double by the end of the decade. The average house cost just over $23,000, and you could fill your tank for under 40 cents a gallon. Do memories of scrawling out a check at the checkout stand come back to you before credit cards and digital pay made cash seem almost quaint? But material changes only tell half the story of this new era. Perhaps the real story of the 1970s is in the feeling. A nation between eras, hanging up its bell-bottoms at the end of a hard day's work and searching for meaning in dimly lit living rooms over a communal game of Yahtzee, the neighborhood block party, the PTA bake sale, the Saturday afternoon baseball game. These were all lasting snapshots of a more personal kind of history. You could argue that the 70s were the last full decade where American childhood and family life were largely unplugged, limited by the boundaries of the backyard and the length of a telephone cord. Surprising as it may seem, research shows that suburban development boomed at this time. The growth of suburbs, fueled by returning veterans and the dream of home ownership, began in the post-war years, but hit its stride here. The result was the classic American neighborhood, block after block of similar yet distinctly personalized homes, each yard a blank canvas for the latest trends in garden gnomes or metallic swing sets. Did your neighborhood have a cool house with tinted windows or an above-ground pool that kids would quietly envy from the sidewalk? Television, not yet digital but every bit as magical, became the collective hearth of the home. By the start of the 70s, color TV outsold black and white for the first time, transforming familiar shows into vibrant spectacles. All in the Family would premiere in 1971, challenging the American public to laugh while questioning the very foundation of its values, proof that even comfort viewing was evolving. But that's not all. Radio still sang its siren song, with AM stations spinning the latest Motown hit or catchy commercial jingles that burrowed into your mind for days. And of course, the local newspaper, delivered faithfully by the neighborhood paperboy, held its place on breakfast tables everywhere. It's curious to think how the technology of the day often lagged behind our present-day memories. Early calculators weighed as much as a bag of flour and could cost the equivalent of nearly $1,000 when adjusted for inflation. Home computers were the stuff of science fiction, while typewriters and carbon paper got the job done. Yet nothing seemed impossible. Americans looked to the stars, with the Apollo missions paving the way for innovations in the everything from kitchen appliances to playground slides. Did you know that the materials and engineering behind non-stick pans and cordless power tools began with NASA research filtering into everyday homes by the mid-70s? You may have found yourself using these space-age products without realizing how much real stardust was sprinkled into home life. For young people, the 1970s meant afternoons spent riding banana seat bikes or skateboards down newly paved cul-de-sacs. Playgrounds were often constructed from metal, hot to the touch in July, dangerously cold come November. A scraped knee was almost a rite of passage, making the Band-Aid box a household necessity. Neighborhood friendships forged on jungle gyms and baseball diamonds frequently lasted a lifetime. Did you ever build a makeshift fort from sofa cushions or spend a summer afternoon reading comic books under the shade of a maple tree? These sweetly simple pleasures offered a kind of magic that today's children, with screens never far from their fingertips, might never fully know. But beneath the surface, society was changing in unseen yet powerful ways. Title IX was passed in 1972, shaping the face of athletics and education for generations of young women. The Environmental Protection Agency began operation in 1970, signaling new national awareness about pollution and the world we'd leave behind for our children. You might not believe this, but smog alerts and gas rationing would become familiar topics in just a few years, an early hint at how even the air we breathed was poised for change. Of course, it wasn't all seriousness and sober headlines. This was the heyday of the drive-in theater, the roller rink, and the popularity of CB radios. Remember the quirky thrill of dialing into a party line telephone call or eavesdropping on neighbors' conversations just down the street? There was a sense that the boundaries between private and public life were always shifting, a dynamic that brought communities closer in ways both heartwarming and sometimes wonderfully gossipy. It's fascinating to remember that the 1970s played host to the first Earth Day, the last episode of The Ed Sullivan Show, and the fast-rising popularity of Jell-O molds and cheese fondue sets at dinner parties. Who knew this was the decade that would introduce us to both microwave ovens and the concept of streaking across football fields? Each year felt both lighter and heavier, an era that seemed to understand that joy and uncertainty would always dance side by side. As we look back, do you find yourself recalling your very first album purchase, maybe bought with painstakingly saved allowance change, or the pride of slipping on a pair of freshly creased bell-bottoms for your very first school dance? What special object or cherished memory, unique to you, tells the story of your own early 70s? With a nation in flux and a spirit ready for discovery, the 1970s set the stage for a decade that would go on to revolutionize nearly every aspect of American life. But how exactly did the innovation and transformation of this decade change the way we lived, played, and dreamed? That's a story that truly comes alive as we turn our attention to the era's dazzling technological advancements and iconic creations. As we return from our journey through the magic of the 70s, it's amazing to realize just how much of that vibrant decade continues to echo in our lives today. We've revisited the early years, those first moments when black and white television gave way to brilliant color before our very eyes, and when music shifted from AM radio to cassette tapes you could hold in your hand. We remembered the introduction of mood rings and Pong, the thrill of the latest Star Wars film, and those unforgettable family gatherings, complete with fondue sets, lava lamps and laughter that spilled from sunken living rooms out into cozy backyard nights. The 1970s were far from just a collection of fads. They were a powerful era of change when households discovered microwave ovens and welcomed gadgets that would shape how we lived for decades to come. We marveled at a national spirit that, despite turmoil, could gather around the television set for the Olympic Games or mourn together in moments of national loss. From suburban bike rides and Saturday morning cartoons to the rise of women's sports and the gradual greening of neighborhoods thanks to Earth Day, the 1970s showed us how traditions could blend seamlessly with fresh ideals. But perhaps what stands out most is the feeling that no matter how much things were shifting, whether it was fashion, technology, or the world itself, there was always a place to come home to. The soft flicker of the living room lamp, the aroma of home-cooked meals, the neighbor's wave as you returned from school or work. Could it be that amid the wild prints, swirling disco music, and headline-making change, the real magic was in those everyday moments, now tucked quietly in our memories? Think back. What song instantly brings you back to that time, or which family ritual makes your heart ache just a little with longing for days gone by? Maybe it was your first car, adorned with an 8-track player blaring Fleetwood Mac, or simply the warmth of an evening spent with friends on a screened-in porch, lightning bugs swirling in the summer dusk. We each hold our own snapshots from that time, unique yet part of a shared fabric that threads generations together. Now I'd love to hear your stories. What made the 70s special for you? Share a memory in the comments below and help us keep the spirit of the decade alive. If you enjoyed reliving these moments, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and consider sharing it with friends or family who lived through these years or wish they had. There's so much more nostalgia ahead. Together we can explore more of the stories and simple joys that continue to bind us. After all, the magic of the 70s isn't just in the objects we kept or the trends we recall. It's in the lasting connections and joyful echoes that still shimmer like a disco ball catching the light in the corners of our hearts.